This Torah class is brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.
Okay, Rabbi Glatstein, Erev Shabbos, as we prepare for Parshas Vayikra and for Purim Haba Aleinu L'Tova. So we find a statement in the Tikkunei Zayar. Tikkunei Zayar says like this: Purim iskarias al shem Yom HaKippurim. Where does the name Purim come from? Where does the name Purim come from? It's very interesting. We know al shem HaPur, but the Zayar tells us there is a strong connection between Purim and Yom Kippur. This is something we've heard before, but this is the source in the Tikkunei Zayar. The Vilna Gaon elaborates on what is the connection between Purim and Yom Kippur. You know, if you want to think of polar opposites, you probably cannot think of something which is more opposite than Purim and Yom Kippur, right? Obviously, like you said, Yom Kippur you don't eat. Purim, even the Chassam Sofer says, there's a mitzvah to eat achila gasa on Purim. Right? Sounds good, right? Why is there any? What's the reason? What's the reason to eat achila gasa? He says like this: what was the chait of the Jewish people in the times of Mordechai and Esther? They were nene from the Suda. So he asked, what do you want from their lives? They had to eat at the Suda. Their lives were on the line. Achashverosh commanded that when the king says to come, you got to come. Says the Chassam Sofer, they could have done something to prevent themselves from getting hana at the Suda. What? If they would have eaten achila gasa, that's not considered hana. If you eat achila gasa, then imagine if they would have come to the Suda completely full. So anything they would have eaten at that point is no hana. So the chid in the time of Achashverosh was, they didn't eat achila gasa. So we have to be masakin that. We have to fix that. So the Chassam Sofer, any event, what's the connection between Purim and Yom Kippur? Says the Vilna Gaon that there are 18 days of Yom Tif throughout the year. 8 days you don't complete the Hallel. 8 days you do complete the Hallel. I'll let you think what the cheshbon is. Then the Gra says the following on the fourth line: Rak b'yom haKippurim she'ein ba achila u'shtiya. On Yom Kippur, where there's no eating and drinking, negdoi Purim, corresponding to that is Purim. V'lochein by harbe chayva mishta. That is why you have to eat and drink a lot. So Yom Kippur and Purim are connected in the sense, Yom Kippur you don't eat, and Purim you do eat. So you say, connected? They're not connected then. The Gra continues. There is another connection between Purim and Yom Kippur, and that is, the Gemara says at the end of Masechta Tainis, in the last Mishnah Masechta Tainis, what are looking number 3? V'chein hu omer, Tziena Oriena B'noi Siyon Mamel Shloimoi. Right? Ba'atara She'itra La'imoi B'yom Chasunasa Yv'yom Simchas Libai. Says the Mishnah, what was the day that God married us? What was the day of our chasana? Zeh Matan Torah. Now that Mishnah is referring to Yom Kippur. And Rashi refers to Yom Kippur as Matan Torah. The Mishnah refers to Yom Kippur as Matan Torah. Says Rashi, Yom Kippur is the day the Torah was given. What? Yom Kippur is the day the Torah was given? Yeah. The Torah we have today was given on Yom Kippur. The Torah that the first luchos were broken. We don't have the first luchos. We have the second luchos. Yom Kippur is Matan Torah. Purim is Kabbalas HaTorah, because we know that at Har Sinai it was Kaf Aleim Har Kagigis. Says the Gemara, Mikan Moida Rabbaloi Raisa. If that's the case, then Hashem cannot expect us to keep the Torah if He forced us into it. So the Gemara says in Shabbos on Peches, Hadar Kibluhu Bimei Achashverosh Techsiv Kimu VeKiblu Kimu Mashe Kiblu Kfar. Yom Kippur is Kabbalas HaTorah, Purim is Kabbalas HaTorah. Says the Gaon, that's the connection between Purim and Yom Kippur. They are both days of Kabbalas HaTorah. How interesting. They're both days of Kabbalas HaTorah, and yet on Yom Kippur you don't eat, and on Purim you do eat. I'll read the words of the Gra inside. Look back at number 2. He says, Simcha shel tshuva, gam kein she'i efshar b'shaita. You can't really rejoice in doing tshuva on Yom Kippur because you can't eat. He says, V'kulan Kabbalas HaTorah, Yom HaKippurim, like it says at the end of Tainis, and Purim, like it says, Hadar Kibluhu B'mei Achashverosh. Says Rav David Cohen, Rosh Yeshiva of Hebron, in the Sefer Yimei Purim. This Sefer I had. We learned from the Gra two things. Number one, he says we learn from the Gra the secret of what it means Purim corresponds to Yom Kippur. They are both days of Kabbalas HaTorah. Yom Kippur, like it says at the end of Masechta Tainis, that Yom Kippur is Yom Chasunasai, and Purim also is a day of Kabbalas HaTorah, Hadar Kiblu B'mei Achashverosh. But we see from the Gra, he says a davar nifla, like this. So you say, well, we have 2 days of the year of Kabbalas HaTorah. One day you eat, one day you don't eat. How strange. Says the Reb David Cohen, what the Gra is trying to say is Purim is a makeup for the simcha of Yom Kippur. Yom Kippur is a day of tshuva, but it's also the day of Kabbalas HaTorah. So if it's the day of Kabbalas HaTorah, really, you should be celebrating. You should be having a festive meal. There's only one problem. You can't have a festive meal on Yom Kippur because you're not allowed to eat. So Purim is the festive meal for Kabbalas HaTorah that we should have been having on Yom Kippur, but we were prevented from having because the Torah says you can't eat.
Like
so Purim and Yom Kippur, Purim and Yom Kippur, if Purim and Yom Kippur are what? Two sides of one coin. Purim is the makeup for the simcha we should have been having on Yom Kippur. So why didn't you have simcha on Yom Kippur? Because you can't eat. So in other words, Purim is makeup day for Yom Kippur. That is the meaning of the Zayar, that Purim is called Al Shem Yom Kippur, and this is elaborated more in the Biurim of Rabbi Yitzchak Isaac Chaver. Who's Rabbi Yitzchak Isaac Chaver? Rabbi Yitzchak Isaac Chaver was known as the Pesh Lishi, the third mouth, because he was a Talmud of the Vilna Gaon. One of the Vilna Gaon's main disciples was Rav Menachem Mendel Mishkalav, and his Talmud Muvak was Rabbi Yitzchak Isaac Chaver. And look at number 7. Ratzaloymar Purim hu mashlim mashachisar b'yom Kippur. Purim completes and fulfills what we're missing on Yom Kippur, which is v'usimcha u'mishta shahayaroi by machmas kabbalas haTorah, that we should have been rejoicing b'yom Kippurim, b'luchas hashnias. But because Yom Kippur is a day of tshuva, of olam haba, we complete it, we fulfill it on Purim. So 1 second, Rabbi Sai, Rav Hutner in the Pachad Yitzchak elaborates and clarifies this idea. I want you to see it for a moment. And that is like this. In Yom Tif in general, we find a concept, Chatzi Lachem, Chatzi Lashem. Half a day you enjoy, you eat, you drink, sleep, and half a day you daven and you learn. And yet there are 2 Yomim Tovim that are an exception to the rule. Yom Kippur is Kulei Lashem, and Purim is Kulei Lachem. So how do we understand this? They're both violating the rule of Chatzi Lachem and Chatzi Lashem. What's the answer? It's one day. Purim and Yom Kippur are 2 sides of one coin. The Yom Kippur side is the Chatzi Lashem, and the Purim side is the Chatzi Lachem. There's one day on the calendar. It's called Purim or Yom Kippur. The Chatzi Lashem part is called Yom Kippur. The Chatzi Lachem part is called Purim. What do they have to do with each other? They're both the celebration of Kabbalas HaTorah. We're going to elaborate more. Okay?
Didn't we say that Purim was a celebration of Torah Shabbat Peh to learn, right? That's what Bnei Israel, they accepted Torah Shabbat by Har Sinai.
Right.
But they didn't really accept Torah Shabbat Peh until much, much later.
Okay. But there's also this idea, B'chlal, Luchas Shniyos were a different dimension of Torah Shabbat Peh than Luchas Rishaynos. Let's take this a little further.
I don't think Chisar Yom Kippur. There's nothing lacking on Yom Kippur.
Yeah, you know what's lacking?
I don't have anything lacking.
I do.
That's good.
I have something lacking on Yom Kippur. Food.
Not for me.
Yeah, but for me.
I wouldn't say such a word. I just would.
Okay.
In another world. How can they say I'm lacking on Yom Kippur something? Who was lacking Yom Kippur something?
All right, so that's what the
Rabbi Glatstein says, that the happiest day in the world was Yom Kippur and Tu B'Av.
Right. But
what's going on here?
That's the good thing you came today. That what's going on is what's Yom Kippur missing? Yom Kippur is missing Purim. That's what it's missing. It's missing the ability to eat. Rabbi Sai, very interesting Gemara in Masechta Shabbos Daf Pei Tes Amud Beis. The Gemara says like this. There's a pasuk. Ki ata avinu, you are our father. Ki Avram lo yadanu, Avraham doesn't know who we are. Yisrael lo yakirenu, even Yaakov doesn't recognize it. Ata Hashem avinu garalenu me'olam shemecha. Says Gemara in Shabbos Pei Tesam Beis. La'asid lavai, Hashem is going to come to Avraham. He's going to say, Avraham, banecha chatu, your children are sinners. What should I do? So Rebbe Hashem is going to expect Avraham to have rachmanas on us. Avraham says, Yimachu akil shemecha. Get rid of them. You don't. What do we need them for? Then Hashem's going to go to Yaakov. Banecha chatu. Yaakov says, get rid of them. So Rebbe Hashem says, the old people, they don't know anything. The young people, they don't know anything. Avraham doesn't have it right. Yaakov doesn't have it right. Let me try Yitzchak.
Who's saying this?
Let me try Yitzchak. So, one second. Right now I'm saying it, and that's the only person who should be saying anything. Okay? So, says the Gemara. So Rebbe Hashem says, who else? Who does Rebbe Hashem turn to? Yitzchak. Hashem turns to Yitzchak. And he says, Yitzchak, banecha chatu. So Yitzchak says, what's the big deal? How long does a person live? Anyway, a person only lives 70 years. The first 20 years, you're not responsible, right? You're off the hook. So now we're 50 years.
And then you're sleeping.
Out of the 50 years, 25 of the years, you're either davening, eating, or in the bathroom. Yeah, that's what the Gemara says. Either tzeluye, meichal, debeis hakisei. So all you're left anyway are 25 years to sin, right? When you're eating, you're too busy eating. When you're davening, right? You see, the Gemara didn't know that there's something called talking about davening. The Gemara couldn't even think of such a thing. So you're only left with 25 years. So Yitzchak says, what's the big deal? Palgi olayu, palgi olecha. I'll take 12 and a half on my back. You, Rebbe Hashem, take 12 and a half on your back. And we'll cover it that way. Very interesting expression. Yitzchak Avinu says, palgi olay, palgi olecha. I'll take half, you take half. So this is very interesting. Rav Hutner quotes Rav Itzel of Petterberg. Now I do not know where Rav Itzel of Petterberg said this. I don't think it's in the Koch Vayar. Maybe it is. And he says like this: what did Yitzchak mean? I'll take half and you'll take half. What is that supposed to mean? There's a Gemara in Masechta Brachos and Daf Yud Zayin. The Gemara goes through the various tefillos that the Tanoim and Amoram daven at the end of Shemona Esrei. When they finished Shemona Esrei, every Amora had his own personal tefillah. Rabbi Alexandri would say the following: Rabbi Alexandri Basar de Metzali Amar Hachi. This is number 9. Ribain Ho'ilam. Galoi v'yadu alafanecha. It is revealed and known before you. Sheritzoineinu lasos ritzoincha. It's our will to do your will. In other words, we want to do what you want. Umi ma'akev. So why don't we? There are 2 impediments. Sa'ar shabe'isa, the yeast in the dough, v'shibun malchiyos, and the goyim. In other words, the yeast and the shibun malchiyos. Yiratzim ofanecha shetatzleinu miyadam. Please save us. V'nashav lasas chukei ritzayincha b'leiv avshalei. Now, obviously, we know what shibun malchiyos is. The goyim, Esav. When you live in a world where you're living in great immorality, it's very hard to keep clean. But what's the yeast in the dough? What? What's the yeast in the dough? Right, celiac disease. What's the yeast in the dough? It says Rashi, Yetzahara shel b'vaveinu hichmitzanu. The Yetzahara in our hearts make us go sour. Yitzchak says people sin. Half your fault, Ribbon Shalom, half my fault. Your fault, you made a Satan. My fault, I made Esav. I'll take half, you take half. Half on me, half on you, Ribbon Shalom. We'll call it even. You made a Yetzahara, I made Esav. So, we'll cross it out. Now we're all even. Now, so Rabbi said, that says Rabbi Tzla Petterberg, this is the meaning of the Gemara in Brachos, where Yitzchak Avinu says, half on me. What do you mean? What did Yitzchak do? He produced an Esav. He said, Baruch Shalom, you want to hold the Jews accountable for the Yetzahara? You made the Yetzahara. So I'll take responsibility for Esav. You take responsibility for the Yetzahara, and then we'll call it even.
He's not responsible for Esav.
So Rabbi says Rav Hutner in the Pachad Yitzchak an amazing thing. There are 2 days a year One day we're able to get rid of one impediment. The other day we're able to get rid of another impediment. We know the Satan is gematria what? 359. But Ha-Satan is gematria 364. Says I think it's the Pirkei de Rebbe Lazar. 364 because the Satan only has authority 364 days a year. There's one day a year he has no authority. When is that? Yom Kippur. He's out on Yom Kippur. He's out of his job on Yom Kippur. Yom Kippur we remove the impediment of the Yetzer Hara. And what day do we remove Amalek and Esav? Purim. So Yom Kippur we get rid of the first impediment, the Satan. On Purim we remove the second impediment, Esav. And we're Megillas Esther. We reveal what's hidden in our hearts. What's hidden in our hearts? Ritzaynenu, Lasois, Ritzayncha, that it's our will to do your will. The only thing preventing was what? Sa'ar Shebe'isa v'Shibud Malchios. On Yom Kippur we get rid of the Sa'ar Shebe'isa. On Purim we get rid of the Shibud Malchios. And we're able to reveal what's hidden, says Rav Hutner. What's hidden? Megillas Esther, we reveal what's hidden. Look in the last line in number 11. He says, well actually take a look at, we'll read about, go about 14 lines up. He says, the first word on the line is Blazer. This is exactly what the Gra wrote. Kishnei azmanim shel Yom Kippur u'Purim heim beside mechzel Hashem and mechzel lachem. Purim and Yom Kippur, half is for Hashem, half is for you. Hayachas hazeh ben Yom Kippur lePurim. This relationship between Yom Kippur and Purim, oimedhu stands kis beside shel palgay alai upalgay alech, and the secret of half on me, half on you. Ka'amar yesh kan shleimus achas b'shnei chatzan. Through Yom Kippur and Purim, we have perfection with two halves. Hashleimus hu hatza'aka ha'amuka. The perfection is the piercing cry. Ha'oila, which arises mitahaymos hanefesh, from the depths of the soul, which is ritzaynenu, lasois, ritzayncha. Ushnei hachatzon. And these two halves, hein shtei ha'tainu shel sha'ar, shabe'isa v'shibud malchios, are the two impediments of the Yetzer Hara and shibud malchios. On Yom Kippur, let's go down a couple lines. We're able to say what the Rebbeinu Shalom says. Palgi alecha. That Rebbeinu Shalom takes care of the Satan on Yom Kippur. And now on Purim we have one half to go. Umikanhu amachzis shel chatzi l'Hashem. V'ilu bePurim iskayemes hatainu shel palgi alai. Umikanhu amachzis shel chatzi l'Hashem. V'nimtza de bePurim mistalek hama'akev ha'achron. On Purim we remove the last impediment. By the way, maybe this is, why did the Gzera Purim happen? Because we got Esav upset. He was Vayitzak Tza'aka Gedoyla. And we rectified that. We were Masakin now when Mordechai was Vayitzak Tza'aka Gedoyla. That was to be Masakin Esav. So now on Purim we remove the influence of Esav. V'nimtza de bePurim mistalek hama'akev ha'achroin. On Purim we remove the final ma'akev hamoinea es ritzaynenu lasos ritzayncha, that prevents our innermost calling of it is our will to do your will. And now it's able to scream forth, and that's the meaning Megillas Esther. We revealed the hidden yearning of the heart of the Jew.
Maybe, is it possible to say that when we said before that Yom Kippur is Kulchem Lashem and Purim is Kulchem Lachem,
yeah,
and that's why in the Megillah Hashem's name doesn't appear, because it's Kulchem Lachem.
Okay, nice.
Very good.
Very good.
So which is Lachem?
Lachem is Purim. And don't confuse the two.
Lachem is Purim?
Lachem is Purim, yeah.
You're reading.
Yeah? Don't. No Shalach. Now listen to this. Says.
That's Lachem.
Listen to this. Says the Pachag Yitzchak, says Rav Hutner, Purim is the half for you. Yom Kippur is the half for Hashem. Just like on Purim we find there was a Gzeira lahashmid laroi uliyabed, the same Gzeira existed on Yom Kippur. What are you talking about? When the Jews served the Egel, Hashem told them, Heref mimeni v'ashmidem. Desist from me and I will destroy them. Did anyone here on planet Earth know about that? No, Moshe's in Shamayim. God is telling Moshe and Shamayim, get out of here, I'm going to destroy the Jews. Did anybody know about this Gzeira down in Olam Hazeh? It was only in heaven. Did anybody know that Moshe davened to abolish the Gzeira? No. The decree of Yom Kippur was in heaven. The tshuva was in heaven. The entire Yom Kippur is in the realm of the heavens. The decree was in the heaven. The tshuva was in the heaven. So on Yom Kippur we become like Malachei Hasharis. And we elevate ourselves kiviyachal to the Shamayim. And everything we do is a heavenly type of service. Because it's abolishing what will happen to our... In other words, on Yom Kippur, the Gezeira is on the Neshama. The Tshuva is in the Neshama. There's no physical activity. But on Purim, the Gezeira was in this world. We knew about it. We rectified it here in this world. We fasted. We celebrate here in this world. Says Rav Hutner, even in the way we interact with our friends. How do you interact with your friend on Yom Kippur? If you sinned against him, what do you have to do? Give him gifts? Give him shalach manos? Ad sheyiratze es chavera. You need to appease his nefesh. Even when you deal with another human being, it's on a spiritual level. You have to appease his nefesh, his ratzon, his soul. On Purim, you go to his house, you bring him a Laffy Taffy, you bring him a beer. You don't care if he wants. We don't. It's interesting. The Ramah says we don't care if he wants it or it doesn't want it. We don't care about his nefesh. We just give him the gift. It's a physical. Everything is celebrated in the physical realm. So these are some very deep understandings of the meaning of and the connection between Yom Kippur and Purim. These are both days of Kabbalas HaTorah. Yom Kippur is the Chatzi Lashem. Purim is a Chatzi Lachem. Purim, on Yom Kippur we remove the Yetzer Hara, one impediment. Purim we remove Esav, the other impediment. On Yom Kippur the Gzeira was in Shamayim, the Tshuva was in Shamayim, and we act heavenly. On Purim the Gzeira was down here in this world, the Tshuva was down here in this world. We celebrate physically, even in the interactions we have. On Yom Kippur we're Maratze, the nefesh of our friend, and on Purim we give his body enjoyment.
Does that mean, could you extrapolate from what you just said, that your Yosei Mishloach Manos, if you give and it's actually not accepted, that there's no physical kinyan, because as long as you, it doesn't have to be Maratza.
He doesn't have to want it, that right? Yes.
As long as you leave it by the door, whether or not he takes it, you're still Yosei.
Even if you give it to him and he doesn't want it, and you don't
you're still Yosei.
Yeah, that's what the Ramah passes.
That's why you don't make
doesn't have to be Maratza.
That's why you don't make a bracha.
Okay, good.
The Ani may not accept.
Now, Rabbi Sai, once we're on Rav Hutner's thought process, by the way, this is like, there are different rays of light, there are different types of light. We can only see certain types of light. Gamma rays, X-rays, you can't see.
It's part of the spectrum.
Right, it's a different spectrum. Rav Hutner's thoughts are a different spectrum of thinking. So now that we're on that spectrum for a few moments, let me just add one thing. The Pachad Yitzchak, and Rav Hutner writes, that the Gemara says in Megillah, I believe on Daf Yudalad, Memches Navim Amdu Lahem Yisrael. There are 48 prophets for the Jewish people.
He learned to remember.
And they did not add, and they did not take away from the Torah except Mikra Megillah. The only thing ever added to the Torah was Mikra Megillah. And what Rav Hutner wants to know is, what is the significance of the fact that on this occasion, this was the only time that anything was ever added to the Torah? So he says the following. Who was the first ger in the Torah? The first person who joined the Jewish people? Yisrael. Yisrael, right? There was no Jewish people yet. He's the first person who joined. What brought Yisrael? Ma shmua shama uba? Amalek. Chias Amalek. So what do we see from there, says Rav Hutner? That the downfall of Amalek increases the Jewish people. It brings more Gerim. That's, you see, symptomatically. The downfall of Amalek at the end of Beshalach brings more Gerim Yisrael. So says Rav Hutner, Yisrael v'Oiraisa chadu. The Jewish people and the Torah are one. And in fact, we do see by Yisrael that when Yisrael was added, the Torah was given. Right? So symptomatically, when Amalek is eradicated, there are more Jews. Yisrael comes. So in the Megillah, when Amalek is removed, there's more Torah. Because we see when Amalek is removed, there are more Jews from Yisrael coming. And Yisrael and the Torah is one. So that's why, that's the understanding, that's the philosophical understanding of why when Haman is destroyed, what happens? They add to the Torah. The same way Jews are added, letters of the Torah are added. But I would add that's why in the Megillah you have this point, V'rabim me'amei haaretz misyahadim. Why are there more Jews? They're Gerim. Why do we have to know they're Gerim in the Purim story? Because this is always symptomatic of the downfall of Amalek. We know that from the very first time Amalek had a downfall. Amalek went down, Yisro came. Haman goes down, V'rabim me'amei haaretz misyahadim. So in both instances, whenever Amalek has a downfall, we see two things happen. What?
And Jews increase.
Jews are more, Torah is more. Yisrael, Torah. Gerim, Megillah. That's what Rav Hutner says. So I say, you know what? Once Rav Hutner is going deep, let's go a little deeper.
We don't take Gerim at a nice time. The time of the big...
Yeah, right, usually. But this is very interesting that it's symptomatic of the destruction of Amalek. But I just want to add one deeper point. You ready for this? Rav Hutner is saying, Yisrael... Jews and Torah are one. So whenever Jews are added, Torah is added. Yisrael, Torah. Gerim, Megillah. But there's one third statement in the Zayar. Yisrael v'yiraisa v'kodesh aberichu. Right? Chadhu. It's Yisrael, the Torah, and the Ribbon Shalom. So say like this. It's not just symptomatic that whenever Amalek goes down, there are more Jews. Why do you think that is? Because as long as Amalek's in the world, who is diminished? God himself. His name is only Yud and Hey. When Amalek has a downfall, God's name is increased. It becomes Yud Kei Vav. When God becomes more, Yisrael becomes more, V'Tayrasai becomes more, because we're all one. So whenever Haman has a downfall and Amalek has a downfall, how does B'Shalach end? Ki Yad al Keis Ka. Ki Yad al Keis Ka. God is made bigger. Vayishma. Jews become bigger, and once the Jews become bigger, the Torah becomes bigger. That's what happened the first time. That when Haman has a downfall, who becomes bigger? God's name. More Gerim. More Torah, Rabbi Sai, Agun Shabbos.
You've just experienced another Torah class brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.